Honest Advent, Chapter 5, Given, Isaiah 9:6. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given. John, who wrote some books in the Bible, all bestsellers, makes amazing royalty checks, said that he and his friends saw the glory of the unseen Yahweh in Jesus, and it was full of grace and truth. Truth is perhaps most simply defined as the actual state of the matter, seeing things for the way they are. And it's fascinating to me that the definition of truth entails having a clear perspective when looking at everything. This feels really tricky. I've spent my whole life in pursuit of a clear perspective, and I'm still working on it. For one, I think perspective often has to do with the vantage point. We can place 5 apples on a table and say that the truth is that there are 5 apples. But if you are 4 years old and can only see 3 apples because you can't see the top of the table, you may conclude that adults are confused about how to correctly count the number of apples on a table. Second, personal preference always sneaks into perspective as well. The actual state of the matter is that Maroon 5 is an annoying band, but sold-out stadiums worldwide tell me I probably got this one wrong. I know I'm oversimplifying a huge concept, but I think the point is that truth is the end of the journey toward having a clear perspective. Truth is found when we can lay aside our own preferences and vantages and see everything for the way it is. It's interesting that those who spent time with Jesus consistently described him as being full of truth, having a clear perspective, seeing the real, which leads us to grace. Grace is theologically defined as the freely given, unmerited favor and love of God, which as a definition is beyond fantastic. As a daily, tangible experience, I have some questions. Does divine love mean I should expect an invisible hug at some point today? Does divine favor mean that things will mostly go my way? I mean, not so much my way that I become a spiritual Veruca Salt, but maybe even enough that my #bless post on social media are evidence of God's goodness in my life? I don't know what your questions are, but abstract religious talk about unconditional love can leave me a little confused about what kind of affections I can expect from an invisible deity. What I've come to understand is that grace is the antidote to the ailment of shame. Shame believes one lacks what it takes to be loved and must endeavor to earn that back. It's the burden of perfection morally, spiritually, humanly, and it inevitably destroys our souls because there's no fulfillment of enough. It's just an endless jog on the janky treadmill of striving. To see Jesus as full of grace means there wasn't any perfection checklist that was met to deserve his presence. His arrival stands against the idea that if you do it right, you get access to his presence. His presence was freely given. He never withheld it. Grace is presence, not withheld. My friend Stephen told me he stopped being a Christian because it stopped making sense. The idea of being created by a God who is wrathful toward you the moment you emerge from the womb, and always will be, unless you say a magic sentence of belief to that God, started to sound like crazy talk to him. He knew he had his faults and bad habits, but if the starting place to a relationship with his Creator was not being loved because he wasn't created perfectly enough by that Creator, he couldn't do it. Everything was already stacked against him. My experience is that many people lose their faith because of their fundamental belief that who they really are, the real, is rejected by the giver who gave them their lives. It's easy to come to this conclusion because this is our learned experience through relational failures throughout our lives. Through the failures and shortcomings of our real, like anger, lying, grumpiness, and unkindness, we experience the loss of presence and human connection, like someone not calling you back, walking out of the room, ghosting in your social spheres. It's easy to infer these conclusions in our relationship with an invisible deity, This shame we experience can be easily woven into our religion. The rhythms, rituals, and practices that become not a remembrance that we are loved, but the very accomplishable works to earn back that love. A religion based on trying to earn love inevitably fails, because works can never truly heal the fear of being left alone because of your real. At some point, you just want to be loved for your real, the actual state of the matter to you. The beginning of the New Testament begins with the Gospel writer Matthew's account of Jesus' genealogy, starting with Abraham and running through a lot of other biblical names that are funny to watch people try to pronounce out loud when they read the passage at church. This was written to anchor Jesus' story in the history of the Jewish people. A literary "this is one of our guys" retelling of the story they found themselves in. It's also intentionally showing that Jesus is a descendant of David, tying him to the prophecies of a coming Messiah from the line of one of Israel's favorite kings. So all the theological things. I think what's comforting about this genealogy is that it's the antithesis of a polished resume that is expected to win the job of being the true religion. It seems like it's just a list of names, but if you get into the story of each one, it's a who's who of misfits throughout the Jewish tradition, with some pretty juicy parts involving kinky relationships and murder. It's honest about the family Jesus is birthing into, the real human family, and it's refreshingly relatable to us today. Each one of us, in a way, is a genealogy of all kinds of histories that are worthy of both celebration and regret. We are a culmination of holy moments and juicy moments too. You know what you know. And it is this paradox of interior genealogy that we carry into the season of Advent, wondering if Christ could come into our complicated midst as well.